Welcome to this first panel. My name is Taqralik Partridge. I am originally from Inuit Nunaat and I live in Ottawa. So happy to be here with all of you. I don't know what the heck I'm doing now. No, they just told me to get up here and with these four amazing artists, and the title of our first panel this morning is Inuit Nunaat and the International Art World. So as you know, we Inuit and our Inuit relatives are all over the place. I always say if we had our own country, it would be the biggest in the world. But we're not greedy, are we? So the only unfortunate thing is we don't have any Inuit from Russia here today, but I am always thinking about them too. If you all could come up on the stage and introduce yourselves, maybe? Okay, that was very rude of me. Maybe you have to introduce yourselves properly. But I think they invited me to talk to host this because I'm so international. So I work as a curator and an artist and a writer. I have had the great honor to work with several artists here and to meet and know you in different ways, and so glad to be amongst you. Heather, I want to say that the fans are the most genius conference item ever. Like, this is the most genius thing ever. I also want... there's more places in the middle, and we want you to be our friends and be closer to us. Don't be far away, don't be strangers. Please. I also wanted to mention that, I know Heather had mentioned this, but people from Nunavik, especially, and other Inuit who know about this subject, are having a hard time because of a terrible thing that happened in Nunavik a few days ago, which was a young man was killed by police, and then his twin brother was also seriously injured. And I just want to acknowledge that and say that this is heavy on my mind too, and I feel like, even though I'm kind of jokey, it's like something that has really affected me, and I feel like this deep kind of grief here that just is so close to home. It's always close to home when it's Indigenous people who are killed in this way, but it's even closer to home for people from Nunavik, especially since I grew up partly in Saturday. I know exactly the people that are suffering from this. So I just want to say that I will try to be kind to my fellow Inuit and try to be there for you. The other thing I wanted to say was, even though I'm joking about Inuit country, I am so privileged and so happy that we are all connected in this way and we're all related, and so thankful to Heather and everybody for bringing us all together. So just saying that, I wonder if we can actually do a proper introduction of each person, and I'll just pass the mic over, whoever wants to start.
Start? No. O kabashtalangasking noen nga kalala katimman te kusaki. Ta kibnam ne wa kam ila kalashtis design san kalashtis design noen so. So I'm Julie. I'm in Inuuteq, Kelliher from Greenland. I'm based in Copenhagen, where I'm doing my PhD. My background is actually within visual arts, but I was encouraged to apply for a PhD, and then I got it. And now I'm funded by the Nordisk Foundation. So I'm affiliated to the University of Copenhagen and the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts. And right now, until December, I'm taking a semester at the University of Victoria, where Heather invited me to take part in the project. And I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah. So my dissertation is about the colonial structures and the impact it has on human behavior. How do we behave to fit in within certain structures? And what kind of other strategies do we do to do something differently?
Hello, I'm Kablusiak. My English name is Jade Carpenter, which is also my Starbucks name. I feel like I've been waiting for so long to make that joke. Just very happy to be here. Yes, I don't know what else to say.
Hey, my name is Inuit Storch. I'm from Greenland. I'm a photographer, and my background is fooling around with friends.
Hi there, my name is Sonya Kelliher-Combs, and I'm Inuuteq and Inuit from Alaska. And I was raised in Nome, Alaska. My family comes from Nulato. My mom's from Nulato. My father is from Qinnirajaattuq, and formerly known as Barrow. And I'm a visual artist and a maker, and I'm also, I kind of consider myself a community activist and also interested in just bringing people together, and super happy to be here with all of you. So thank you, Guyana, for bringing me.
But it's lovely. Give them a round of applause, please. I always think about Qinnirajaattuq, late famous Inuit artist from Qinnirajaattuq, from Nunavut, like the Inuit artist, you know, saying that, you know, she was famous even within her lifetime when she was alive, like, and still so humble, so Inuit. And I remember the quote of her saying that her art and the fact that she's famous from her art was not more important to her than making clothing for her family or being able to provide for her family or doing these other activities that are very Inuit-centered in her community. And I think about that and try to emulate that value in my own work, and I think that's the kind of question that I want to ask all of you is, we're here to talk about our connections through art, our work across colonial borders. What is the value of the work that we're doing as far as how it builds community and how you are able to be of service to your communities in an international context? Or not?
For my concern, born into colonial structures, it took me not a whole life, but through my education in the Nordic countries, Finland, Norway, and England and Copenhagen, I didn't really questionize my background. I was so focused on succeeding in the structure, so I forgot everything about it until I began to meet a lot of indigenous people. Then I started to questionize my own background, the influence I had through Nordic cultures, and then by reading a lot of literature and theory, different theory written from indigenous communities and other philosophers, I came to kind of knowledge that my history doesn't begin with colonization. It goes much further back, and that's something I had in my mind while working, and that's a completely different approach to work within art.
I want to add to that, because I always come back to the story about when I was doing the residency. Actually, I was working with Jessie Kleeman, who's out there somewhere. There she is. And I was in Copenhagen, and this cab driver is asking me where I was from, and I said I was from Alaska. And then he's like, but isn't Alaska part of America? And I'm like, my people were there before it was America. And I don't ever say I'm from America, but in terms of creating community and crossing borders, it's so important to the work that we do. I think all of us are doing it, trying to create opportunity for other people. I think that's a part of my practice. So I feel like when one is uplifted within your community, all of you are being lifted at the same time. So that's the way I think about the work that I make, trying to bring alongside other people and introduce. It's important to make introductions. And if I don't remember your name, I know your face, okay? So just give me a moment. But takes a while to get in there, but yeah, that's important work to me.
No, this is really nice. It reminds me of, I did an event in Minneapolis 2 years ago. It was like a northern foods inspired event called Inuuteq, and it was like, how do I eat country food with like making the good, like somebody else pay for it. So with this program, I worked with Buckley Gallery and a few other folks in Minneapolis and Minnesota, and there was a chef that I got to work with who was Inuuteq, and he knew what aqueduct was, and he was like stoked on the menu, and it just like worked out really beautifully that I didn't really have to explain anything. So we had like southern version of northern foods. I forgot. This whole Minneapolis thing kind of started because they have an event called the Great Northern, and I kind of was like, what do you mean? You guys, you're so far south, I don't get it. So it just kind of sparked this whole conversation of like, what is north, what is borders, who decides these things, but it just, at the event, there was like some kind of representative of the Canadian government and some French guy, I can't remember his name, but I asked him if he believed in borders, because I was like joking with my friends there. I was like, just gonna ask him, like, why not? And he didn't really understand what I was asking, so I kind of pushed it back to be like, these foods existed before borders, we existed before borders. Why do you think I'm having trouble getting my food into certain areas? Because, caribou's not allowed to go certain places. There's restrictions on our food. And it kind of dissolves down to that borders are not real and colonization has affected everything. I don't know if he ever got it, but I felt, I was like shaking. I was like, what do you think about borders? Probably scared him, I don't know. But yeah, it's fun to kind of make people question what they think about nationalism.
Do you have anything to say about that?
It's very similar answers. It's just a different form of explaining the situations. So I don't know if I should answer or no.
You can say everything you want.
Okay. Like a lot of us, I was born into a colony, and growing up, I was dreaming about leaving Greenland. School taught me about different gods in different part of the world, but they didn't put my own religion in learning. I had only a week about Greenlandic shamans and helping spirits. So I was really dreaming about leaving Greenland and starting a good life and stuff like that. Even though I had a good life, then I left Greenland and understood that actually my life in Greenland is amazing, and I actually don't know myself. I was made to forget my own culture. I was scared of shamans. I thought from singing was I don't know what that was, and I didn't know the meaning of that. But when I left, I figured that I need to go back and understand myself. So that's the short one.
I'd like to add to that a little bit, because it wasn't until I went away to graduate school that I really realized how important the place was to me. And it was an eye-opening experience for sure. Yeah. And I went back. Yeah.
I would also like to add, born in Greenland in a colonial structure, you learn through history that the world has been colonized by Europeans who wanted to increase their fortunes through the monarchies, and at some certain point we learn at school that we were colonized by the most humane colonizers among the inhumane. So when you accept the doctrine, you kind of forgetting to have a critical approach, and it puts you in a sense of gratitude mind, and as soon as you behave with gratitude, you forget to have a critical approach, and that's the thing I've learned most by meeting other cultures and indigenous group of people. So I think this is very important to also have in mind.
I want to ask a question about, and you are, all of you are, of course, able to ask questions to all of us too, but the sense of belonging that you have, I think about as an Inuk artist or somebody who makes things, the way that I see that we make things, it doesn't matter what discipline we're working in, we're all accessing the same source of creative energy. And I see that as a way that Inuit artists in particular and many indigenous artists approach work. And that's why we're awesome at everything. But the sense of belonging that you have in the art world to the so-called indigenous art movement internationally, to the Inuit art movement, like where do you situate yourself as a person who's working in creative work?
I definitely feel belong in Inuit art, but growing up I was part of Denmark. So I always felt my fellow Inuit, you guys are further away from the Danish, but I cannot mirror myself in the Danish. The first time I went here was in around 2017-18, and it was the first time I was in a collective of people of Inuit, and it was very different for me. I could see myself in you guys. The way we laugh, the way we gather, the food we eat, it's the same. So I usually feel very belonging when I come. But at the same time, I also feel a lot of longing because we have been ripped of our own culture, and my DNA definitely has a lot of longing about spirituality, the connection between Inuit and the northern countries. So I think belonging and longing goes together.
Everybody write that quote down.
Longing.
I can add something to that. While I'm growing up in Greenland, I've very often felt alienated in my own society, even though I felt home among my fellows. Somehow I felt alienated in the structure, and I couldn't figure out how and why. Through my travels and education, through my meeting with a lot of different people, I kind of find a home among my like-minded scholars, artists, and just people who have experienced oppressions, human experience with knowledge within oppression, how they deal with it.
I think that just as you spoke of, it's like I feel like when I'm around Inuit and Alaska Natives, I feel at home, comfortable. And then the sphere goes a little bit further with Native Americans, because I do a lot of work down in what we call the lower 48. So those people are also our relatives. And then it kind of grows a little bit and a little bit more as you travel around. You find your people. And at the end of the day, we're always in the corner somewhere together, like the like-minded people, you know. They're the people who come from the same place, the same well. But I think you have to, I've worked very hard to try to expand that circle, because Alison Warden, is she here yet? No? She's trying to make everybody Inuit, or Inuuteq. She's making everybody Inuuteq. And I'm like, if we could just help for them to see and understand. I think it sounds terrible, but during COVID, that people began to really appreciate things like the land and nature and each other in a way that I think we already know, you know. So that was a little, you know, snippet to something of, you know, this kind of nature-centered way of living. So.
This is just kind of making me think of some work that I made recently that were these like weighted dolls made out of rabbit fur, cowhide, and then sealskin. And they were exhibited in Hamburg, and the context of the exhibition was survival in the 21st century. And I feel like it could have easily gone into like doom and gloom. The world is ending and like we don't have anything left, and how are we going to survive? There's multiple wars going on. There's like human beings actively killing each other just for no reason. But like my response to that prompt was to make these like freaky weighted dolls with like eyes that open and close, and they're like heavy and soft, and they're kind of like meant to be held, and they're like chained to the plinths, so you can't walk away with them. But I think I just wanted to like give people a moment to sort of like have a rest and like hold an object and feel connected, and thinking of like this compassion and care and like support and love is like we only have that for each other left, you know. So to kind of invite that into a gallery space, which is usually for like, I don't know, I shouldn't say usually, I just don't like to rate hyper-intellectual art, just doesn't feel right to me. So these weighted dolls is like something that people could find comfort in and solace in, and this is how we will survive. So, yeah.
I'm still thinking about the borders you were talking about, because I was in Rana, the most northern town in Greenland last year, and they were talking about the cousins that they haven't seen for years, and probably crush, who knows? But it's like the geographical borders are not the only borders that we have. We also have borders that says that you cannot be spiritual, you cannot bring your food. Like there's so many borders that we are.
Yeah, no bringing like across.
Yeah. And the border between Greenland and Canada plays a lot in my connection with other. So many borders. I'm bothered.
I want to ask you about your connection to place. Like, Kablusiak, you were talking about being in Minnesota. I often say, like, I lived in the South since a long time now. I came down for school. And I used to always feel like, I'm just a visitor. And in a way, I'm a visitor. I'm on other Indigenous people's lands. But at the same time, that idea of just being here temporarily always made me feel like I cannot connect to the land where I am. And I wonder, and it kind of shifted actually when I lived in Sapmi for 3 years, and I realized just how powerful the land is there, and the connection that Sami people have to their homeland, and just really, really feeling the Inuit idea that the land itself is alive. I feel like that was the place that I really realized it, because I used to always feel that in the north, but then like in like Mohawk territory or Algonquin territory, it was always like, I'm just in the city, but actually the land is the same, it's alive. So I wonder how you relate to place when your work is in many different places. And it can also be through materials as well, like you're talking about using different materials.
like when I go home, I feel like home. My hometown is Inuit in Greenland, and I always go home to relax and get energy and be with friends and family, cook, do poesy, eat, keep up in the job and stuff like that. Like it's being part of the community that I was born into. So home is quite, and home is a lot of nature in Greenland. So home.
So how do you, like if you're doing work in Greenland or in Denmark, or if you were in Venice recently, how do you relate to those places? How does your work relate to those places, and how do you still, I don't know how I'm asking. Somebody stand up and ask the question better than you.
So I think it's about identity, because everywhere I go I have a different identity.
Yeah.
In Sisimiut I'm a different person, in Denmark I'm a different person, and the same with language. In Greenlandic I have a little different identity, in Danish and English as well. And in Spanish I look very stupid because I don't speak Spanish.
I kind of feel like when I'm somewhere else with my work that, or even without my work, I feel like I'm always explaining a lot of times. So that's always, I sometimes, if I was a performance artist, if somebody wants to do this, you could just put on a little sign that says who you are so people can stop asking you. It's like, I guess I could wear one of those t-shirts that say I'm Inuuteq or something, you know, but they'll still ask more questions. But I feel like you're always, or I'm always explaining. But I actually think it's an important part of being an Indigenous artist, because people need to know that we're here and we're making and we're doing, you know, this, you know, trying to, you know, elevate awareness and find out, share the true history of our countries that have colonized us, and, you know, all of that. So I think it's an important thing to do, even though it sucks, but, you know.
That just like makes me think, like, again, I've totally felt that, like, oh, I need to justify my existence. I need to explain to you that Inuit exist, and, you know, that we were here before Canada. And, like, I don't know, I'm kind of over that, because it's exhausting to try to get colonizers to see you as a human being. So I think I put in my slides 2 wall hangings that I made for an exhibition in 2019 in Stockholm for the supermarket art fair, and it's somebody on the toilet and then somebody carrying groceries, and it's kind of like, sure, it's funny and it's like it's everything, but it's like kind of like everybody boobs. We're all human. This is. Yeah, you can't deny our existence when we have the same things coming out of our butts. Sorry, that sounds weird.
Sonya, I wanted to ask you about, because you work with a lot of artists from many different countries. I wanted to ask you about how that has moved your career. I mean, not as far as like being successful, but like the kind of work that you do, how has it affected it or helped it grow?
So I think I am the oldest artist on this panel. But in that way, I think that when I graduated from Arizona State University, I came back home, and it was a wonderful, you know, homecoming. But I didn't know what to do, and I was very lucky to have people support me as a young artist and invite me to participate in different volunteer, you know, be on boards, committees, teach, you know. And then I eventually started curating as an artist, And that's a really important part of what I do, I think, or is important for me, because it's an opportunity to share work, to elevate other artists, to go into collections, which is very important to all of us, I think, is access to our historical objects, our customary objects, and spend time with our relatives in those vaults, in museums and other places. But it's enriched me in many ways, but part of it, what I want is to be able to allow access and also to share. And there's an exhibition, I don't say I curated it because I included myself in it, so I organized it. But there's several artists here that are a part of that exhibition at the Museum of Contemporary Native Art, and they're all artists I've worked with. That's in Santa Fe. It's affiliated with the Institute of American Indian Arts. Because I just wanted to show work by amazing artists. And even though we're from all different places across the north, they all communicate. They're all different types of materials and mediums, but they all speak to each other. So I think the more that we can elevate each other and create opportunities, that's so important to me. So I don't know if did I answer your question?
Thank you. Inuuteq, the question I have for you is, in your photography work, it's very intimate. You were talking about, you come at it as so like, what did you say? Like fooling around with friends or party time or whatever. I think that this kind of work is so moving, and especially I think it could be so encouraging for Inuit youth. What do you see, what makes you have to do work like that? And who are you trying to speak to with those kind of work? I guess that's my question.
As I said before, I went back to understand my own culture, so this is part of the process. It's actually just very simple, trying to understand yourself. How am I with my friends and who am I in this place? So basically understanding yourself.
Okay, so I know you as a very kind, brilliant person. I know you say you don't want it to be super over-intellectual, but I think you're really like just one of the smartest people I know. And your work is infused with so much humor, but also very, very witty. You already talked a bit about it, but could you talk a little bit more about like how humor is important in the work that you do, and humor in the face of no hope in the world, no?
I try to make everything I do have like some kind of, well, not everything, but like humor, and being funny is very important to me because my mom is also like a super funny person, and it also is like a way to sort of cope in this world that tried to kill all of us, intentionally so. And I feel like this is the one thing that has, well, not the one thing, but it's one of the many things that's kept us kicking and around, is being able to have that levity of like, well, shit, we're here, might as well like laugh about it, like we made it this far. Yeah, kind of using humor to sort of humanize things and cope. And also it's like accesses more audience too, because like people, I think, maybe are scared to laugh at some things or don't know if it's supposed to be serious or not. And I think that is also part of it, to like be cheeky and mess with people. And it's like, it's okay to be scared to laugh, but it's okay to laugh too. Yeah.
Mother. I know that you are a person who seems not afraid to say what needs to be said, but I feel like you must have had to come to a point in your life where you were like, this is what I'm doing. And I feel like you also must have had challenges from people around who don't want you to rock the boat, who don't want you to say these difficult things. And I wonder what it is that gives you strength to do that. And how did you decide, this is what I'm doing?
I mean, first of all, my own fellows, among them, there are, for example, the older generation who have struggled a lot on behalf of their fellows, and I learned from their approach, and I'm very grateful for those, because without our ancestors, without their struggles, I wouldn't have been able to sit here and also speaking Kelliher. It's their struggle, so I'm very grateful that someone has insisted. Otherwise, we have been disappeared in history as some culture who has been at once. But we are still here today. And the thing that kind of gave me strength to keep going on is also my other alliances or other taking part in other research group. For example, I'm taking part in another research group in Denmark where we have a project to investigating the former presence of Danish coloniality in US Virgin Islands and in Ghana. And that was really, really interesting. So only not focusing on the Arctic, we kind of focus on other places, and through that I realized human experiences, it goes beyond so many levels. And it kind of inspires me to, go further on, continue my work, and usually my last exhibition in Nuuk Kunstmuseum, which had a great influence on, at least on the presentation, which I'm grateful for also. One of my pieces were called Qinnirajaattuq, those who can't be silenced. And Nivi grabbed that word, and we kind of agree on putting that as a title on my exhibition, and I'm so grateful. And that sentence has become some of my, it's something I keep in my mind all the time. Those who can't be silenced. So as long as we can't be silenced, we'll still hear. Pardon? Yeah, when Taqralik. Yeah.
Okay, we're turning over to the audience. By the way, the audience is also full of famous artists. Mr. Kleeman, do you have a question?
Thank you for your all brilliant presentations. I was just curious to know about how to elaborate on that question that you posed on being a different person or being an indigenous in other countries and in other cultures, like in the Danish realm. So I remember when Julia, we call her Julia in Greenlandic, so Julia, when she had a long durational performance with the language project, she wanted to speak only Greenlandic in Greenland, Kelliher, for half a year. So I wanted to elaborate on that. Who do you feel you are, or how do you become yourself in different cultures, in different languages, in different, places that you go to present and bring your identity? Is it your body, or is it your culture? So I would like to know more about it, because it's so interesting, because now I live in Denmark for 20 years, so it's always such a big question that you are Greenlandic, like an Inuuteq. What a problem it is, as a big, big problem. So I would like to, it was a big problem back then in Greenland when Julia had this project, so I would like you to talk about it.
Yeah, but the thing is, actually, I think I read somewhere that you in an interview, you were saying it's very political being a Greenlandic or Inuit body in Denmark, and also since that. So what's my point here? I feel it too, and I'm struggling with it, and I haven't really articulated these embodied experiences, so that's something I'm trying to do through my research also. And also because in Greenland we don't really discuss, we have a knowledge of those issues, but we don't articulate them publicly, even though it would be great kind of, do it through different maybe cultural workshops, but it's like there's something that holds us back. I think it's the sense of it's not allowed to be ungrateful, for example, now that we were colonized by the most humane colonizers, so this approach of being gratitude is still very much in our behavior. But the thing also within language, I speak 5 languages, and someone told me that for each language you learn, you get an insight into different cultures' souls. So what I've noticed is, for example, when I speak Danish, I'm much more outspoken. My language is more like hi, and I enter the room, because it's also within the language, I think. And within Kelliher-Combs Inuit language, it's like within the language I become more humble. I give the space for others. I don't take the space. Like in Danish or Nordic languages, I take the space to gain, for example, respect. Otherwise, you don't get respect. So it's different, very different approach to societies. So in that sense, I'm becoming more aware of that. And also from my research, I'm also aware of that embodied experience in different landscapes are yet not too. At least I haven't articulated them. So I'm seeking literature or works that are kind of articulated around that. So if you have any recommendations, this would be great.
There's a question around this side of the room. Thank you.
Hello. As you can see, I'm not from around here, but I'm from Cameroon. We went through 4 colonial masters, and I found some sense of connectivity with what you all are saying. But here is my question. I believe all of you mentioned that at a certain point, you went out to find, you were able to, when you traveled out, you were able to find connectivity and belonging to somewhere. As we all know, today's generation, the youth, they do have access to that, but how do we channel our youth or teach our youth to belong, to connect? Because I think the world is changing so fast, and colonialism has changed its form. It's still there, and although most of us travel, we have that exposure, and so not a greater population of the youth where I'm from. We're about 25 million people, so I would say most of the youth is still back home. How do they have that? How does that spark come on for them to find that belongingness home, to find that connection back home?
I think, can I answer? The best people to answer that are probably youth. But I just wanted to say, from my perspective, in the Inuit context, youth are doing such exciting things and doing art in ways that they decide for themselves. They're determining for themselves, and you can see that online. There's so many youth here, like really amazing artists that I have had the privilege to encounter and whose work I absolutely adore. And they're doing Inuit art as young Inuit in the way that they choose, selling online, connecting with each other. So that is really amazing. But from the perspective of an old person, old-ish person, I have had to learn to be supportive in the ways that youth need. And I learn from youth, and I would encourage people, older artists and cultural workers, to do the same. Like, I know that I am so cancelable, as my daughter says. But like, I have to be aware that I can learn from young people and how to support them. So I think it's really about connecting with each other as much as possible, and finding ways to support each other. I think this is true for Inuit in general, is that we always try to find ways to support community members who need help. And in Inuit culture, I think this is true even when we don't like the other person. Like, we don't want to see Inuit going hungry or not being able to have access to opportunities. So I think that is the model that I try to adhere to. I don't know if that helps your question at all.
What sparked the interest in art for all of you? Like, because it has to start from somewhere. And I'm just really interested to know where the interest started to flourish.
I'll start. You know, when I grew up, we were always making, my mom was like always teaching us how to do things, even if maybe I didn't appreciate it at the time. And I'm really thankful that she taught us how to bead, because that's like a muscle memory. And when I was older and I began to appreciate it more, and I love beading. So, but actually, when I went to undergrad, I took an art class, and I was always creative, you know. But the guy he was a real hard ass. He was a real hard ass. And he's like, one of you's gonna be making art in 20 years. And I'm like, oh, it's gonna be me, you know? And then when I got my Governor's Arts Award, it was a painting of his. And I told that story, and I said he was a hard ass. I got a B. I worked really hard. It was very rewarding, and then I changed my major.
Does anyone else want to answer that question?
I think it's very natural for me. Like you, I've always been creative. I just got more engaged when I figured that you can be an artist, and I was like, oh, I want to be an artist.
You're good.
Hopefully. Sometimes, not all the time. The funny thing is, I'm a photographer, so most of my work is not shown, and it's because it's not good enough. I mean, if you know how many photos I took and how many I've shown.
For my concern is, I brought up with an uncle who was a carver, and then he brought me to some of the meetings among other artists. And then actually at first I wanted to take another direction, another education into psychology, but one day, sitting at my classroom in the elementary school, I was looking out at the window and saw our local art school, and people like Jesse Kleeman went in and out of the door, and I thought, these people are really looking interesting. So within some couple of years, because as I mentioned before, I felt alienated in the structure, and also in the educational structure. So I was seeking some space where I felt welcome. So, and I was good at drawing. And I actually liked the environment where artists, Inuit artists, Greenlandic artists had a critical approach to society. Their questions, their approach to society appealing to me. So when time came, I applied for the art school, and then it just went on, yeah.
I love when you say alienated, because I really want to go to Inuit. And there's a festival called Alienate. So I wish someone will alienate me.
That actually follows very close to the question that I had, Inuuteq, because I was like, you're this amazing international panel representing all the time, going back all the time, traveling so far, being so grounded at the same time. So I wanted to ask you, how actively do you seek the travels? How actively do you decide to go, or where you want to go, or if you want to go? Is it a decision you make, or is it just us curators putting you in different places, or how much do you actively seek it yourself? That's one answer.
There's one place I decided on my own that I wanted to go, and it was Edel. It's Greenland. The rest is I've been invited, and me saying yes or no, I say mostly yes. I love traveling, and the consequence of being an artist is a lot of traveling, and that's something I enjoy. I get tired, of course, but it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, but that's a very interesting question, because all that knowledge I carry with me is actually being influenced by all the invitations I got through time. And every time I get the opportunity to also go on travel on my own, I also go up to other destinations that might not are connected to Arctic or the specific field of interest, also to gaining more other kind of knowledges, especially focusing on human experiences and not only into specific geographical areas.
I think it's a reality of having to make a living in this field. I feel conflicted about so much air travel because of climate change. At the same time, Inuit life, like even if you live in a community in the north, so much of it has to do with you having to travel if you have to go for medical or meetings or whatever. I like to go to cold places. So yes, I'll say yes to Greenland.
Similar to Inuuteq, I think a lot of my opportunities are invitational, but I do sometimes apply for things like the exhibition at the Museum of Victorian Art. I do some other things that are really targeted. So those are harder to do, but they're very worthwhile, I think. So yeah.
We have a question here from Edel.
Hi everyone. Good to see you all. I think something Sonya brought up, and Kablusiak touched on this a little bit as well, is the feeling of having to explain not only yourself, but Inuit as a whole, kind of, within your art. And this is something I struggle with as well sometimes too, but what is that, what line does that come to, I guess, in terms of how do you decide those boundaries of how many explanations are too many? And also, how do you take care of yourself afterwards? Because it is a difficult job to sometimes feel like the ambassador of all Inuit as this one artist. So yeah, how do you set those boundaries? How much is too much? And how do you take care of yourselves afterwards?
I think it depends on the day. Sometimes I'm really willing to explain like I'm Inuit. It means a human, and my religion used to have a lot of creatures, spiritual creatures and stuff like that. And I believe that's why we call ourselves Inuit. Because ghosts and Inuks are Inuit. And sometimes I will be like, yeah, I'm Eskimo. Depends on the day.
Yes, definitely depends how much intoxicants I've put into my body. And I think it's also a matter of that feeling of not bothering to explain nothing to nobody. That's from within of like, this is me, I know who I am, good luck, you know, have fun trying to figure me out.
I remember I interviewed you for something a couple of years ago, and we were talking about this question about like the weight of cultural representation, and you were like, you know, when I was in art school, it was like a crushing weight of cultural representation, and now it's more like a weighted blanket.
Yes, very that. Another question.
Hi. So I'm really interested in understanding, like from a perspective, storytelling is considered animate. So stories are animate beings, and then even the mediums can be animate beings. And I know like our storytelling across the board is similar, but different also. So I'm just wondering, like, because I kind of view some artists, not all Indigenous artists, as storytellers. So, and you can really see it in particular artists. Like I really love Helen Kablusiak, her work, because her storytelling is so, and there's all sorts, right? There's contemporary types of stories, there's personal narratives, whatever, but I just wanted to know what your perspective from an Inuit like perspective on storytelling, because I don't know anything about it. I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
I feel like I only get to hear stories when I hang out with my mom, which is twice a year, once a year if I'm lucky. She lives and works in Taqralik, so I feel like I don't even know why I got the mic. I'm not the one to answer that question.
I can take a shot. The storytelling has a very meaningful effect. I don't know afterward. But storytelling is like keeping the rules, keeping the experiences written, because Inuit didn't write, but like the stories are the ones that kept like how to make paya, how to turn on, how to behave when the winter solstice comes, or how to behave in the summer, and it's basically like Bible. Short something. Sorry.
I know, like for Inuit culture in general, we say that every single thing, like physical thing at least, has has like some part of life in it. Like each object has some spirit of life in it. And I mentioned earlier, like that when I had lived in Sápmi in Norway, that I really felt that the earth itself is alive. Like we would say that, but to actually feel it, like I always feel in the north, like Nunavik, Nunavut, whatever, it's alive, but the whole earth is a living entity. And I think of creative work that way. Personally, I think of creative work that way. So yes, storytelling for me. I don't know what traditional view on actual stories being alive is, but I know from experience from creating written work that yes, it is alive in the way that something that you make with your hands is alive. Like once you create the thing, it exists as itself, and people can relate to it as this entity that is unto itself. A good person to ask about this would actually be Evie Mark, who was up here earlier with the blue blazer. She did the opening in Inuuteq. She has had many projects, and one of them was where she interviewed elders, many elders all across Nunavik. Nunavik has 14 communities, and she interviewed about traditional storytelling, songs, which includes stories, and throat singing, and she's so knowledgeable. She's only in her 40s, but she's like an elder, so I would suggest that you talk to her.
Yeah, I was even thinking of contemporary service. I was thinking of Ruth Cutman. Sorry. Other artists, I just curated Ruth Cuthan's work that opened up on Friday, and she has all sorts of stories. There's the post-oak kind of woman series, misuse and abuse, talking about colonialism, because those are stories too. And then on the flip side is also traditional stories and this kind of misunderstanding that we're going to lose our languages and stories, I think is like the new form of the vanishing Indian trope. And just give one, I don't mean to take up all the space, but like, I'll just give one good example. It's like I was talking about our family lost the important Qinnirajaattuq story. And we thought we lost the ending of it. And then after my auntie and my mom died, I found a yellow Hilroy book in Slavics, and it was a chaplain and a grandfather I never met that wrote out the whole story. So I have it and I can pass it down. And it's like, if those stories want you to have them, they'll come and find you. And I thought that was so hopeful and a tangible example for anyone, right? Yeah.
Good question from Hannah here.
Wow.
Hi. Abik Sorumatsunga, Ginami Ichasiratasea. I wanted to ask, who do you see as a role model, not just in art, but because artists are Inuit and who we are inside, affects what we make, and what qualities do these role models have that they embody? I just wanted to know.
One of my mentors and somebody that I really respect is Susie Bevins Erickson. She's from Qinnirajaattuq. She's an amazing artist who's in her close to her 80s now, I think, who was a carver, and at a time when carving was not something that women did. And she also was really pushing the boundaries and is super engaged in community and elevating Inuit to Inuuteq voices. And she took me under her wing. And of course, I have to say that I think that she just pushed her way in there and made space. She took over. Like, they started this place, and I'll go quick, but the Visual Arts Center was specifically for Indigenous people of Alaska Native people. And then, because it was being publicly funded, then they had to let all of the other people in. And she just was like, forget it, we're staying. And she just like went in there and asserted her space and elevated so many voices in a time when it was not a popular thing to do. So her, and then of course my mom, she's an inspiration. She's an amazing woman, so.
And I think for most of Greenlandic artists, Sumi, a Greenlandic band, has a very impact on how we think, and actually really like the importance of Greenlandic culture is pushed into today because of Sumi as well. And I'm a big fan of Uli Christiansen, the most, he's the best poetry man in Greenland. Then, and of course family, and parents, and nieces, and cousins, and friends. And Martin Van Pension. Big fan.
I mean, I've been inspired from a lot of different people from different parts of the world, but the main thing is people with integrity and who dare to speak up. That's those who inspire me.
I'm also very inspired by Greenlandic alcoholics in Copenhagen, because I've seen how they work together, and their collection is like very heartwarming actually. Like they help each other, unfortunately for alcohol, but the way they help each other is so warming when you are finally in that.
I feel like my answer would be similar to the panelists of just family, friends, colleagues, contemporaries. Unfortunately, I don't think any white artists are in that list, but that's okay.
Victoria Taqralik, late Victoria Taqralik, she taught us beadwork in culture class in Gujarat. Inuit creativity, Inuit, you are an amazing, beautiful artist who's asking this question, and you're one of the people for sure. Inuit making things and doing things, even in an environment where we're not encouraged to be different sometimes. Like, when you have done spoken word, when you did your cross-country activism, Inuit who dare to be the leaders without trying to be the leaders, but you just happen to be a leader. Also, Heather made me an artist, so it's Heather's fault.
Not true.
I can't say it enough that I think that, the creative source that is out there is like, we access it by listening to it. We've heard that about how sculptors would say that they listen to what the stone wants to be. I think we do the same in anything that we make, and it's amplified when we are together working on things, talking about things, inspired by each other. And it's kind of like a positive storm, and I think that's what's happening with Inuit art. I think we're out of time.
Yeah, that's perfect. First, we're going to congratulate and thank the panel for that incredible conversation.